Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I am Will Thomas, and today is our Week 3 preview show. Week 2 was great. Week 2 was fantastic. It was a sleeper week. Beforehand, guys, there's no such thing as a sleeper week in college football. Whenever there's a sleeper week, that's how you know something incredible is going to happen, because there's never a dull moment in this sport, and we saw that when Florida went down to USF. We almost had an upset in Lexington with Kentucky taking on Ole Miss. This week looks a little similar. We got a few more conference games, but there's a bunch of cupcakes still obviously early on in the season, but do not sleep on this week of SEC action at all. We're so accustomed to seeing incredible games, and that should be the same story this week. So for the preview, I'm just going to get right into it. I'll do the same thing I did for weeks 1 and 2. I'll run through the cupcake games really quick, just some bullet points that I want to see from each team, and then we'll go more in depth into the bigger, more marquee matchup. So let's get right into it. The first cupcake game, Oklahoma at Temple. First of all, why is this happening? Why is Oklahoma flying up to Philadelphia to play Temple? And on top of that, they're doing this in the ultimate sandwich spot. They just beat Michigan at home to really announce themselves to the college football world. And Jackson, Arnold, and Auburn are coming to Norman next week. So you have to deal with a potential letdown off of Michigan. You have to deal with a look ahead into your former quarterback coming back to your stadium to try and beat you. Awful sandwich spot. They're going to be fine. Oklahoma is not going to lose this game to Temple. Knock on wood, I don't want to be a part of that if they do. But the line opens up at 24.5. It's already dropped to 21.5. So clearly the market and everybody else is kind of seeing what I'm seeing with this not being a good spot for Oklahoma. So, yeah, I'd imagine Oklahoma is a little slow. They're probably not going to, light up the scoreboard. And if they do, fantastic. But I don't think they're going to totally manhandle Temple, because Temple's not an awful team. They're really not a horrible team. They should be a player in their conference this year. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really weird game in general with Oklahoma having to go on the road to Temple. It's even weirder given the spot. So, if this game was close at halftime, if they don't blow them out, I wouldn't be concerned. I feel validated. I'd feel like that's definitely what I'm expecting to happen. But I'm not worried at all about Oklahoma in this game dropping one they shouldn't. And if they do, I'm going to look really, really dumb because of how high I am on this Oklahoma team. But second game here, Wisconsin at Alabama. We saw Bama go up to Scotty last year and take down the Badgers. Bama's laying 21.5. To me, this is just another spot for Bama to really lay the hammer. Right after that FSU game, they came back. They beat ULM by 70+. And now you get a Wisconsin team who's just okay. Right? I mean, decent, middle of the pack-ish Big Ten team they have a really hard schedule this year also. So Wisconsin's hopes for this year aren't really that high. They'll come out fired up, the Badgers will. I mean, you're on the road at an SEC team. You want to get revenge on them for beating you last year. I'm not really sure I see that happening. And for Alabama for this spot, they have a bye week next week. Then they get Georgia. They got to go to Athens. So this is their final in-game reps to tune themselves up before they go to Georgia in what could be a game to try and turn their season around. So I do expect them to be coming out pretty intensely, with a lot of intensity, really try and move the ball around, have their defense shut down Wisconsin again, to try and keep inspiring confidence within themselves and within their fans before they get 14 days before they go to Georgia in what could really turn their season around and restore their narrative. South Alabama at Auburn. Auburn's laying 24.5. This is a look-ahead spot for Auburn as well. I talked about Oklahoma. Auburn's got the same thing, because for Jackson Arnold, you know that he knows he's going to Norman next week. He absolutely knows that. And once again, same thing. I'm not worried about Auburn in this spot, especially because they're at home against a lesser in-state school. So just another game of tune-ups for Auburn, right? You try and keep the passing game going. You don't want to see Arnold running around a lot in this game like he did against Baylor, because if he gets not hurt, but like if he gets a little banged up and maybe his week of prep is limited before he goes to Oklahoma, that would be a big deal. So I would expect to see Auburn really keep Arnold in the pocket. Don't let him get hit. Let him throw the ball around. Maybe take him out early-ish based on how the score is going. But just have their defense shut down South Alabama, keep the passing game going, get one more round of tune-ups before you go to Norman. ULM, after their great showing against Alabama, now they go to Missouri, who has absolutely blown me away so far this year. I thought their offense was going to be iffy. I figured their defense would be good, which has been true. But man, Missouri looks really, really good. They look really good. Bo Prabula is slinging the ball around. He looks very, very mobile, very, very fast. Their tandem of running backs are incredible. They're favored by 27.5. Wouldn't shock me if they're able to cover that. I think they can win this game by 4 touchdowns. Missouri gets South Carolina coming in next week. So I'm not super worried about that as a look-ahead spot because I think that even though Carolina's ranked really high, Missouri's, I think, low 24, 25, something like that. I'm not worried about that being a big-time look-ahead spot. I really love the way that Missouri looks. So for this game, you just got to stay healthy, stay clean. Don't do anything dumb like get a guy tossed for targeting in the second half so he misses the first half of that Carolina game. Look for Missouri to really dominate this game and just get ready for Carolina next week. UTEP at Texas. Texas is laying 41.5. Don't want anything to do with a number that high. It's their second of 3 straight home cupcakes, so no real look-ahead or sandwich spot for them here. Is Arch actually fine? Like we saw all that stuff with him grimacing after he was throwing the ball against San Jose State. Sark came out and just kind of said some weird things about reporters in the bathroom that I don't need to get into. If you guys saw it, you saw it. But I am worried about how healthy he is. I'm worried about, is there something up with his shoulder? And if there is, you can't play him for more than a few drives. I do think they need to put him out there, keep getting him in-game reps because he like Lagway, similar to Lagway struggles, he is a young player who just hasn't played that much football. So he needs to be out there to get more reps, get more comfortable, so he can look better during SEC play than he did against Ohio State. Their offense started pretty slow against San Jose State, but then it really got together. I want to see Texas come out hot. I want to see them leave no doubt after the first 5 minutes, like, this is going to be okay. We're going to light up the scoreboard. We're going to take down UTEP. Texas is going to win this game by a lot. I just want to see how that offense looks. Their defense, I know what I'm getting. But offensively, is Arch healthy? If he's not, you got to get him out after a few drives, I think, and just kind of keep letting the Longhorns get ready, get loose, and get comfortable. Alcorn State goes to Mississippi State. I couldn't even find a line for this game. So Mississippi State, in theory, this is a letdown spot after that home win against Arizona State, but having Alcorn State at home, that is not even remotely a problem. Alcorn State is simply not a good football team. Just stay healthy if you're Mississippi State, and next week for the Bulldogs, they get NIU at home, another cupcake. So just kind of keep cruising along, win both of these games, stay healthy, and get ready for conference play. Then Eastern Michigan at Kentucky. This is a Kentucky bounce back because I'm very low on them. They competed with Ole Miss pretty well, but once Austin Simmons stopped throwing them the ball, they lost that game. I think it was 27-10 after that point. So Kentucky's favored by about 24 points here. What I'm looking at for Kentucky defensively, just limit the inferior opponent. I want to see Zal Calzada just look efficient throwing the ball. I don't need to see him throw for 250 and 3 touchdowns, but can he just complete like 65 or 70% of his passes? Obviously, they'll be running the ball a lot with Dowdell and McGowan, but I just need Calzada to throw it efficiently. Not even downfield. Just can you complete, 70% of your passes against an Eastern Michigan team at home and just try and inspire some sort of confidence that you can be a good quarterback for Kentucky as they go into SEC play. All right. Lame games are over. Let's get into what we really, really want to see this weekend. Let me start off with a game that I think is going to be one of these sleeper best games in the country this week. It's Vanderbilt at South Carolina. South Carolina, I believe that line is now down to 4.5 that the Gamecocks are a favorite, and the total is 47.5. If anybody can tell me the last time, off the top of their head, don't look it up because that's cheating, and I didn't look it up. But the last time that Vanderbilt went on the road to a top 15 SEC school and was less than a 6-point dog, like that tells you all you need to know about what Clark Lee is doing at Vanderbilt and how good this game is going to be. In that game against Virginia Tech, Vanderbilt looked incredible coming out of the locker room. They were down 20-10 at halftime, then won the second half 34-0. Outgained Virginia Tech by 300 yards over the last 30 minutes. That is a type of sledgehammer that we have not seen out of Vanderbilt in forever, really since James Franklin was there. And Carolina, they have looked kind of slow offensively. Against Virginia Tech, outside of their first drive, all they had was a punt return from Vakari Swain and the deep shot to Nick Harbor. And against South Carolina State, they only had 17 points offensively because Vakari Swain housed 2 more punts. I mean, this guy's incredible. They had to scoop and score. So I think Vanderbilt's defense, given what they were able to do to Kyron Drones, now Drones is not Sellers, but I do believe they're going to be able to keep up and kind of slow down Lenore Sellers and not let him take over the game, be super explosive, throw for 250, run for 100. I don't think Sellers is going to do that in this game. And diving a little more into the deeper analytics and where I think this game is kind of going to go. Both teams have plus grades in explosive passing offense and negative in explosive pass defense. So look out for that because Vanderbilt, you don't really think explosive passing downfield because with Diego Pavia in there with their running backs, you kind of expect them to be ground and pound, short passes off to guys like Eli Stowers. Vandy has had the ability to go downfield so far this year. And if you add that already to the running threats that they have, that offense is going to be very, very good. And for Carolina, Sellers can throw the ball 250 yards in the air, I think is the number that he maxed out at. And Nick Harbor, obviously, when he gets downfield, if he gets by the corner, it's a touchdown every single time. So I'm expecting some explosive passes in this game, some real fireworks. And Vanderbilt's defense, here's where I think the Commodores really have an advantage. They have a heavy plus grade in passing downs. When Carolina maybe gets behind the sticks, they're able to really capitalize on that because Carolina has a bad grade in passing downs. When teams are able to kind of just sit back, let their pass rushers go, and just play coverage, Carolina has not looked that great. So if Vandy's able to get Carolina behind the sticks, that's where they get a big-time advantage. And also, if Vanderbilt comes out and throws the first punch or two, let's say they go up by 10, or maybe they just go up by 7 in that first half, that can be the same thing, right? Because then Carolina is in sort of a passing situation where if they're down, I shouldn't have said first half, in the second half, if they're down 7-10 in the second half, they have to throw that ball around. They have to be quick. They have to score fast. That in itself is advantageous for Vanderbilt, even if they're not getting, into 2nd and 9s, 3rd and 8s, things like that. Pavia versus Sellers, this is such an awesome quarterback matchup. It's two guys who are absolute gamers, and they both want the ball in their hands when a play needs to be made. I think these two in a duel is going to be absolutely incredible to watch. In a night game at Williams-Brice that they'll definitely get up for because it's their first conference game. And people are this line shows it. Vanderbilt is real. This is no longer a tune-up game for any conference opponent. This is a legitimate matchup that you have got to get up for, or they will beat you. They will beat you. My biggest rate on this game is that I think the total is too low. 47.5 is what I'm looking at. I do believe it's still in the high 40s. I don't have the updated number if it has changed a little bit. I think this game is going to be explosive. I talked about the explosive passing offenses for both teams and how the defenses struggle with it. I think there are going to be a lot of fireworks in this game. I think this is going to be one of the most entertaining games of the weekend. Right now, I'm leaning South Carolina, really because of home field advantage. And I think there's an overreaction to their slow start on offense because that offense is just too talented to not get it figured out. I think they're just working out the kinks. Right, I mean, Roswell faced on one of the running backs. They didn't know if he could play for a while, so he's still getting integrated into the offense. I got this game being played in the 30s. Right now, my score prediction is 35-31 South Carolina. If Vandy won the game by that same score or something similar, it would not shock me. So I don't really want to touch the number at 4.5 because I think either team could also win this game by a touchdown. But man, my biggest rate on this is the over. It will be a part of my best bets this weekend. I am just so excited for this game. But for the sake of giving a prediction, I will say South Carolina wins this game close. I don't think this will be a two-score game. I think this is going to be a close, tight finish in favor of the Gamecocks. Another SEC versus SEC game, Arkansas at Ole Miss. Ole Miss was favored by 9.5 when this opened up. It is now down to 6.5. What that tells me is that Austin Simmons is hurt. Not that he won't play, but we saw him get beat up in that Kentucky game. He came back in. But for this line to just drop 3 points like that, I don't believe, given that Ole Miss is at home, that is just the market adjusting to what they think is going to happen. I think that is Austin Simmons getting hurt and not being 100% of himself. And just for Ole Miss football-wise, injury aside right now, their offense didn't look awesome against Kentucky, right? Because Austin Simmons is throwing a lot of interceptions. I don't like how he's looked so far this year. They looked a little bit slow. Their defense does seem okay, but Arkansas is not at all an easy task for a defense. Taylon Green is an absolute game wrecker, and Mike Washington Jr. at running back is a Swiss Army knife. They can give him the ball in the backfield. They'll throw it to him. He has put up 100-yard total offense, I believe, in both games. He is an absolute game wrecker. He is such a great player. And the line moving, it really tells you that Ole Miss, this is not at all a write-in win for the Rebels. Even though they're a ranked team at home against Arkansas, who's been at the bottom of the SEC, this game's going to be dangerous because Arkansas is dangerous, period. And with a banged-up Austin Simmons, even more so. And it is worth noting that a healthy Austin Simmons hasn't looked that good either. So if he's banged up and not quite as mobile and he's forced to stay in the pocket and just throw the ball around, I'm worried about that. But so let's say Austin Simmons can't go the entire time. Their backup is Trinidad Chambliss, who's coming in from Ferris State. He is not used to playing in the SEC at all. So even being at home in the Lane Kiffin offense, if it comes down to Chambliss having to come in, I don't like that at all. The total for this game is 61.5, so it should be a fun back-and-forth game. I do believe Ole Miss will be able to score a good bit of points. They're still Ole Miss, even if Simmons is in there, maybe not being totally efficient. This is an upset pick for me this week. I want Arkansas to pull the upset. I'm going 35-31 Hogs. Big-time win for Sam Pittman. Big-time win for the Hogs. Arkansas is so dangerous with the way their offense is. They have several playmakers on defense. Give me Arkansas to beat Ole Miss on the road this weekend. Next game I'll go to, Florida at LSU. Let me actually look right now as I'm kind of talking to you guys about this, what the live line is, because it opened up LSU at 9.5, and that kind of seemed short to me to start, and I think that part of that is it's sorry I'm multitasking right here. Just give me 1 second, please. Jeopardy music. Jeopardy music. Do, 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 do. Yeah, that line is now 7.5. If you're a casual bettor, just looking at that line, you look at LSU, who won on the road and beat Clemson. They were slow against Louisiana Tech, but that's just a look-ahead spot. And then you look at Florida over here, who could not have looked worse offensively against USF. Lost that game at home because of stupid mistakes, bad execution, all that. LSU's only favored by 7.5. That's free money. Books don't give you free money. Books do not give you free money. Florida and LSU games are always weird. They're just about always good with the exception of a few blowouts in the past. These two teams just play awesome football games against each other. And my biggest question coming into this is, does Florida come out fighting? Because last year, it took a few punches to the chin for them to really wake up. Obviously, they had the spark of Lagway coming in after Merch got hurt at Tennessee. They don't have that sort of infusion of energy coming off the bench this year. But they have it starting, right? We know what Lagway can do. He has looked rusty because he is a young quarterback who just hasn't played much football. Only played 7 games last year as a starter. And he was hurt like all of summer and most of fall camp. He just hasn't played enough football. So are those first 2 games enough? Are the mistakes he made in those first 2 games enough to really get him back going and knowing what he has to work on? Going to Death Valley at night is a very hard place to make those adjustments, but we know how talented he is. We know how talented that receiver room is. Does the play calling for Florida adapt? Do they look at the game plan against USF and say, this obviously is not going to work? USF is a good defense, but this is obviously not going to work in the SEC. So do they start to scheme up for their playmakers more? Do we see Vernell Brown emphasize a little bit more? Do we see Trey Wilson a little bit more? Dallas Wilson could be back for this game. Their 5-star freshman who hasn't played yet this year. If he gets in, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get schemed up because he's an incredibly talented player as well. And Florida's defense, they look awesome. They look really, really good. Shout out to LIU. Only gave up 16 points to USF. I'm not counting the safety. USF ended with 18, but I'm not counting those 2 points against Florida's defense. And USF's offense is legit, right? Byron Brown is there. You have Chaz Nimrod and Kayshawn Singleton at receiver. The defense looks very, very good. But they do not grade very well stopping explosive passing plays. And LSU is probably one of the worst teams to have to face if that's one of your weaknesses with how good Garrett Nussmeier is, how good that receiver room is. So when LSU has an advantage, that's going to be downfield passing. And the Tigers' defense is incredibly fast and physical. Harold Perkins and Whit Weeks at linebacker, they're just flying around. They will knock you out. You have Mansour Delane and A.J. Halsey in the secondary, Bernard Gooden on the defensive line. That LSU defense is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So for Florida, this game, you want to win it. You really want to win it. But you just have got to look competitive because if they go to Death Valley and get blown out, this could go off the rails for Napier in Florida. There are already calls for Napier's job. If this game is not competitive at all, we're getting there. I think we're really, really getting there if this game's competitive at all. And looking dead at USF for Florida, who's clearly a good team, that's pretty telling. So you've got to look like a team with a pulse on Saturday. You just do. And after the USF game, my immediate reaction, it was that Florida is dead. And then a few days went by. I started prepping this game a little bit more. Had some time to just digest what I saw and sort of rationalize it. Florida's a really talented team. They were ranked highly in the preseason for a reason. Lagway was getting Heisman buzz for a reason. The Gators are going to come out and compete. I had that question early on in the week. I led the segment with it. Florida is going to come out and compete. I believe that, especially defensively. This game should be pretty competitive. I'm still going to pick LSU. I'm still going to pick LSU to win because the jump between losing at home to USF and then beating LSU on the road is so high. I do believe Florida plays a good game. I think they look a lot better. I'm taking LSU to win this game, probably by a touchdown. So for right now, gun to my head, I would take Florida to cover. All Florida has to do is compete. Man, and if they do win this game, I really wonder what the reactions are like. Because the Fire Napier train has been going at full force really for 3 years. It calmed down a bit given the wins they had at the end of last season, but it didn't take very long for it to come back, and now it's got more velocity than ever. If they win this game, I wonder what the reactions are. I really do, because Florida has to go to Miami next week. That game all of a sudden becomes incredibly important. But the biggest tell for me on this one is that if Florida does get blown out, this could go off the rails. So the Gators just have to compete to really keep the fans, invested in the team, to keep the team invested in themselves. So this should be, I do think it's going to be a good game. I really do think it's going to be a close game, despite how both teams have looked so far. But I'm taking LSU to win still. All right. That was a long time spent on that game. Sorry. Let's go to South Bend. Texas A&M at Notre Dame. Last time I looked, Notre Dame was a 6.5 point favorite. The total was 49.5. Marcel Reed got banged up in the second half of A&M's last game. Mike Elko thinks he'll be okay, but if he's not 100%, that takes away a lot of what A&M wants to do, because his dual threat ability and his ability to get hit and get back up it's a lot. It's such a big part of their offense, and Notre Dame is going to be physical. When they hit you, you're going to feel it. So Marcel Reed's health is the biggest storyline for me going into this game, because A&M's offense, I like it a lot. I really, really like it a lot. Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, our receiver, are great. They have such a deep and talented receiver room, running back room, that really goes like 3 or 4 deep with guys who could start at most places. So I like A&M's offense to be able to score. What I don't like is that A&M has given up 22 and 24 to their first 2 opponents, who were weaker teams at home. Because looking at this game, it feels like they need to hold the Irish to like 24, 27 to try and win. And that's right where they've had, UTSA, which is not it's not a very good look. CJ Carr, Notre Dame's quarterback, he looked very, very good against Miami. They lost that game, but as a true freshman on the road in that environment against that defense, he looked really, really good. Do we see more Jeremiah Love for Notre Dame? I mean, Jadarian Price, great running back, and he showed it against Miami, but they need to have that two-headed monster to really keep a consistent rushing attack, right? So that one running back doesn't get beat up, tired, and they lose that flair. And in the receiving game, Eli Raridon, Notre Dame's tight end, led them in receiving yards by about 50. That can't happen again. Right, Raridon's a great player. If the passing game works, it works, I guess, but you need to have receivers who are legitimate threats on the outside to keep a defense on their toes. Where I do like A&M in this game, their front seven has a havoc rate of 21.1%. So that means that over a fifth of the snaps, they are forcing a TFL, pass breakup, or turnover. Now that is against UTSA and I believe Utah State. But those numbers are still good, and A&M's defense was never really a question mark for me overall. Do I question how well they can stop this Notre Dame offense? Sure, but they've shown that they have a great ability to kind of put a team behind the sticks, keep a quarterback on their toes, and if you can do that to a true freshman like CJ Carr, that can give you a big-time advantage. I think this game, similar to Vandy and Carolina, I think the total is too low in the high 40s. I got like 28-24. I'm leaning Notre Dame because I just don't know if they can keep up with what Notre Dame will be able to do against A&M's defense. I like pieces of the Aggies' defense, but overall they haven't shown that they can really stifle a unit. So I'm going Notre Dame 28-24 right now, a very, very close one. And also, Notre Dame really needs this game because looking at their schedule, if they go 0-2 against Miami and A&M, those are by far their two biggest wins. Now, a 10-2 Notre Dame, I do believe still gets into the playoff because of their brand, which I really hate to say because that should not be the deciding factor for if a team gets into the playoff or not. But regardless, this is a big game because even if they lose both these games and still make the playoff, what can you look at to prove that Notre Dame can beat a playoff-worthy team? I think USC will be good, but I don't know if beating them is really a telltale sign like, okay, yeah, we can go take down LSU in the playoff. This is a huge game for Notre Dame. I do think that touchdown Jesus wills them to a win at home. It'll be close, but I've got 28-24 Notre Dame. And then our final game, College Game Day, is in Knoxville for Georgia at Tennessee. Georgia's laying 4.5, I believe is the updated number. It might be down to 3.5 now. And Georgia had a slow game against Austin Peay. I don't believe that's a big problem because I think it was a look-ahead spot for Georgia, and there was like an hour or two long weather delay in the middle of that game. That just really that makes every game so weird. It gets offenses out of rhythm. It gets guys out of the flow of the game. So I'm not really worried about how Georgia looked at home against Austin Peay. Tennessee absolutely flattened East Tennessee State, scored 72. And Tennessee's offense has looked very legit against levels of competition, granted, that are worse than Georgia. But Aguilar has looked better than I thought he would with the deep passing accuracy, the explosiveness, all of that. Here's where I think Georgia has the advantage in this game. Georgia's offensive points per opportunity, which means when you get the ball inside your opponent's 40, how many points are you scoring on average? They're averaging 5.5 points when they get in those spots. That is against Marshall and Austin Peay. But that kind of ability to consistently close drives is very, very good because Tennessee's defense, they're giving up 5 points every time that an offense gets an opportunity inside their own 40. Against Syracuse and ETSU, those aren't awesome numbers. They're just not awesome numbers. So if Georgia's able to get inside the 40, it seems like they'll be able to get touchdowns, right? And Tennessee, they're scoring 5.3 per opportunity, but Georgia's only giving up 3.3. So I'm kind of looking at this game. It sort of feels like Georgia will be able to get touchdowns where Tennessee might have to settle for field goals. But where Tennessee has the advantage is a very high success rate of explosive passing plays, and Georgia's defense does not have a great success rate defending against explosive passing plays. So the follow-up to what I just said about getting inside the 40, does Tennessee even have to get inside the 40? Because they can score with that passing offense literally from any one of the yard markers on the field. They really can. And Georgia's offense has not been explosive. They have great line yards per rush and second-level yards per rush, but they have not been an explosive unit. So this is kind of a clashing of styles, where Georgia is going to try and lean on you, ground and pound you, short passing game from Gunnar Stockton. Tennessee is going to try and take the top off, and if they can connect on enough deep passes, that's all the offense they really need. I do think Tennessee will hit on some explosives. I think Georgia's defense, however, is good enough to force Aguilar into some mistakes, because while I was low on Aguilar coming into the year was a low completion rate and high picks. Going up against Georgia, if that's going to pop back up and prove that take from me correct, this is the game. Now, Aguilar can go out there, sling the ball around, upset Georgia, and I've got to take back everything I said about Aguilar. And hand up, I'll do it. I got no problem doing it if he goes out and proves that. But I do think that Georgia's defense is going to be able to force Aguilar into some of those mistakes he's been prone to in the past. I've got 28-20 Georgia, because I think Georgia's able to march down and get touchdowns. I think Tennessee will have to settle for 3 sometimes. So I've got Georgia going into Knoxville and picking up a win against what is a very good Tennessee team, who has looked better than I thought they would to this point. So there we go. Those are all the Week 3 games in the SEC. I cannot wait to sit on the couch all day again. It's my favorite thing to do. I literally cannot get enough of it. Man, we got another great batch of games in each window this week. Never fall asleep. Never fall asleep on these games, because something's going to happen that you did not expect. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I have been Will Thomas, and I will see you guys on Sunday for the Week 3 recap.